Thanksgiving is that time of year where organizations are launching food drives. The number of people accessing these services and support continues to grow throughout this pandemic. The Daily Bread Foodbanks saw well over 113,000 visits in August alone, a 67% increase from the same time last year. And if this upward trend continues, it's expected Toronto Foodbanks will see 1.4 million visits by the end of the year.
We're certainly seeing a lot more first-time clients come to food banks, people who, might have been working before, who lost their employment or had reduced hours and who had to come to the food bank for the first time. But it's also really important to remember that we're still seeing a lot of the same clients as before the pandemic.
The pandemic has exacerbated circumstances, increasing disparities, more people living close to the poverty line, unable to afford basic necessities.
What we didn't know is just how long that heightened need would extend. So 18 months later, and we're still seeing incredibly high rates of food bank usage.
Once deemed a temporary solution,
coming to a food bank means that our systems have failed people.
Food banks say more and more people are dependent on these supports and for longer periods of time. But it isn't just food insecurity that is a growing challenge.
Housing has been a real challenge for a lot of people throughout this pandemic, and that a lot of that pressure gets absorbed by the shelter system. So certainly we've seen an increase in calls, but we're not necessarily able to take everyone who wants to come to our shelter because we just don't have the capacity for it.
Not without an increase in funding and measures that would allow these organizations to expand services. The YWCA offers a full range of programs. During the pandemic, the multi-service agency has also seen a greater demand for mental health supports.
When we see things like loss of job or loss of community or loss of education access, loss of childcare, loss of support systems, all of that loss means that there's a void that needs to be filled.
As the pandemic forced much of the world to move online, social support service providers saw a change in how their clients were accessing supports.
In some ways, we've been actually able to expand the range of services that we've offered because it's not dependent on transit or people having childcare to access.
But going virtual also brought about new challenges for clients and service providers.
The wait times are longer, or it's really dependent on IT and technology that we just know that not everyone has access to. The isolation that we're feeling or that they are feeling has only increased.
While organizations like the Daily Bread Food Bank and the YWCA continue to support Canadians, they also advocate for change.
We need to look at bigger policy changes. We need to look at income supports, affordable housing, decent work. These are what's going to really address the root of the problem.
Now, the Daily Bread Food Bank has a goal of raising 284,000 pounds of food as well as $3 million by the end of this month. In Toronto, I'm Faiza Amin for City News.